Hello and welcome. Today, we are diving deep into the pretty explosive world of prediction markets. You've probably seen them popping up everywhere, right? They promise this whole new way of, well, engaging with the world.
And this is the question they always lead with. The pitch is actually super simple. If you're smart, if you follow the news, if you have a gut feeling about things, why not turn that insight into actual cash? And look, the claims they make are anything but modest. The leaders of this industry, they're not just saying it's a cool new tool. They're saying they've built some kind of super crystal ball, a machine that finds the absolute truth better than any expert, any poll, anything. And the scope is just massive. You can trade on who's going to win the next election, sure, but also on whether we're heading into a recession, or even something as random as how many streams a new song will get on Spotify.
It all sounds pretty revolutionary, doesn't it? But is it really a tool for the people, or is it something else entirely? Okay, let's get into it.
So first things first, let's look at the theory. How are these platforms supposed to work? How do they become this ultimate truth machine?
The concept itself is pretty straightforward. You're basically trading on real-world events. So imagine a market on whether it's going to rain tomorrow. If the crowd thinks it's a 50-50 chance, a yes contract will trade for about 50 cents. Now, if you buy one and it does rain, your contract becomes worth a full dollar. Boom, you doubled your money. If it doesn't rain, it's worth zero. So the price at any given moment is supposed to be the market's collective guess on the probability of something happening.
And here's the big idea. When you've got your own money on the line, you're forced to be honest. You're forced to be rational. You can't just spout off a bad opinion. You have to be right, or you lose cash. This financial pressure is what's supposed to filter out all the nonsense, all the noise, leaving behind only the most accurate prediction, the so-called truth. Okay, but here's where that whole truth machine argument really starts to get shaky. To get those super accurate predictions, the system actually relies on something very controversial.
Yeah, you heard that right. The secret ingredient, the magic that supposedly makes this truth machine work, is something that's a felony in traditional finance: insider trading. The core belief is that people with privileged information, the insiders, they'll come in and bet heavily on the right outcome. Their big money moves the price, which signals the truth to everybody else and makes the whole market more accurate.
I mean, just look at this contrast. It's wild. In the stock market, you use non-public info to trade, you're probably going to jail. In the world of prediction markets, it's actually seen as a feature, a necessary evil to help find the truth.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote is from Dr. Robin Hanson, a guy the industry holds up as the expert, basically the godfather of modern prediction markets. He says it right out loud. Insiders are great. Please bring them on. They're not a problem. They're a necessary part of the machine.
Just think about how this works in practice for a second. Who's an insider when it comes to the Oscars or a song's Spotify streams? For a lot of these markets, there could be thousands of people with inside info. A government jobs report, so many people see that ahead of time. A Spotify employee could just tell their friend about a song's performance. It's basically impossible to police this stuff.
So, if the whole truth machine idea is built on this really shaky foundation, then what are these platforms really? Well, this brings us to the language they use, which is very, very deliberate. See, you won't hear them talking about bets or wagers. Nope. Instead, you're going to hear all this sophisticated financial jargon. You're trading event contracts. You're hedging risk. This isn't a casino, you see. It's the democratization of finance. This language is all designed to make it feel like you're a serious Wall Street investor, not just placing a gamble.
So with all that high-minded talk about the economy and the future of news, what are people actually trading? Well, take a look. On Kalshi, which is the regulated leader in the US, a whopping 88% of all the trading volume is just on sports. It's less about predicting the economy and a whole lot more about predicting the game.
And what about that most accurate thing in mankind claim? Well, a Vanderbilt University study looking at recent election markets tells let's say, a different story. As you can see here, polling markets accuracy was just 67%. That's barely better than a simple coin flip, which, would be right 50% of the time.
So if these markets aren't really that accurate and they're mostly being used for sports, then who is actually winning? And maybe more importantly, who's losing?
This number right here, this tells the real story. An analysis of one platform found that just 0.04% of elite traders, a tiny, tiny fraction of users, walk away with nearly 70% of all the profits. So much for the democratization of finance, huh? This is the consolidation of profit.
And for the other 99.96% of people, this is the reality. This quote from a user on a forum, it just shows the human cost of marketing these platforms as some kind of way to get ahead. People are losing rent money, they're taking out loans, and they're falling into despair.
So why? Why the constant, relentless effort to frame this as investing and not just gambling? Well, it turns out the difference between those two little words is worth billions and billions of dollars.
It all comes down to regulation. See, by calling themselves financial markets, they fall under the federal CFTC, and that lets them dodge a mountain of rules they'd face as a gambling company. As you can see, they avoid massive state gambling taxes, up to 51% in a place like New York. They skip expensive state-by-state licensing, they have minimal consumer protection rules, and, this is a big one, they can target 18-year-olds instead of the 21 and up limit for gambling. So what have they really built here? I love this analogy. Imagine I make a machine. It's got a big red button. 9 times out of 10, when you press it, it punches you square in the face. But that one other time, it gives you a cookie. So what do you call it? Is it a cookie machine or is it a face-punching machine? Right? You judge something by what it actually does most of the time, not by its best-case scenario.
And really, that's the key takeaway here. This is a calculated strategy. By wrapping online gambling in the fancy language of high-tech finance, these companies are able to operate with fewer rules, pay way less in taxes, and prey on the economic anxieties of vulnerable and often very young people.
And it all leads to one final, really critical question. This big push to turn every single aspect of our lives into something you can trade, this drive to financialize everything, who is it really for? And who's being left behind to pay the price?